I started or restarted my YouTube channel. And today I'm going to talk about what that workflow's been like because I get this question quite a bit. Andrew, how do you publish so many episodes per week? And how are you at 1,575 episodes right now? And how do you just kind of keep it together? And why do you do it? And how do you do it? These are the questions I get. And today I'm going to be answering them not only for the podcast, but also for the YouTube channel I started because I wanted to see what I could do and if I was able to do another channel. And of course, there's always the podcast and what I've been doing to kind of increase downloads recently overall. So that's what we're going to talk about on today's episode of the How to Protect the Ocean. We're going into science communication, folks, so let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. This is the podcast where you find out what's happening with the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, and what you can do to live for a better ocean by taking action. And today we're going to be talking about the way I take action, which is science communication. It's something that I've gotten into over the past almost 12 years now. Actually, it is 12, maybe even longer than that, maybe 14 years. My gosh, time flies. And so we're going to be talking about how I really started to do more science communication, I guess consistently is really what it comes down to. How do I stay consistent? What's my workflow like? How do I keep up with posting 3 times a week for the audio podcast? And lately on my YouTube channel, 2 episodes a week for the YouTube channel. And by the way, the links to the YouTube channels in the show notes if you want to take a look. And I think it's important to talk about because there are a lot of you who have been asking me about, how I do all this and how you can do this too. And I'm going to say right off the bat, it's not easy. It's a difficult process. It takes time. It takes getting over fear. And it takes, sitting in an office by yourself or with a colleague or a friend or a family member who's helping you with this, talking to yourself or talking into a microphone or talking into a camera, which can be severely uncomfortable, especially at the beginning. I still get uncomfortable. But I want to kind of share what my process is like to kind of help you if you're looking to start a podcast, start a YouTube channel, start consistently posting on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, whatever, Twitch, whatever that might be, and use my example as a way to kind of model how you're going to do it, or, switch it to what you want to do and how you want to publish, right off the bat. So I'm going to talk about sort of what I've been doing and why, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of insight on what you can do and how you can take action so as soon as possible. So like if you press stop or pause, or once you finish this episode, you're going to be like, all right, once I give Andrew a review on this episode and the whole podcast in itself on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or wherever you can get reviews, because I love those reviews. I love hearing how these episodes, hit people and be like, oh, this is actually really inspiring. I want to hear that. That's the whole goal of this podcast. Once you finish, listening to this and then doing the review, I would love, to see you start your own, and get on that path and like work out, to do your own and see what that path is going to be like. Just to give you a little bit of background on me, I have taught, digital science communication on and sort of operationalizing it with Duke Universities with their online development program. I guess a postgraduate development program. They don't have it, unfortunately, anymore, but we did that for a year or two. And I talked about how to start a podcast and so forth for environmental communications a couple of years for that program. And still like to teach that as well. So if you ever want me to help you out, I do coaching, and I'm going to be putting out a service soon. But right now, I just want you to just be like, hey, you know what, Andrew? I just want to hear what you do and how you do it so that I can model the same thing or something similar. So here it goes. Okay, so why do I do this science communication? I do it because I love it. Do I do it for money? Absolutely not. Am I trying to get money from it? Yes. When I first started, did I do it for money? No, I did not monetize it. It was a while before I even got any money for it. I did get favors for it. I did get flown to places for it. But it's not as if this is like a huge moneymaker for it. This is a passion project. It's beyond a hobby because I love it so much. And I love it so much because I'm a marine biologist. I'm a marine conservationist, and I love this so much. And my regular job right now is not in environmental anything. I work for a software company. So the goal is to continue to stay within ocean conservation by doing what I can to kind of leave my legacy on marine science and conservation. And that is to continue to do science communication for people who are looking for information on the ocean. Because when I was looking for information on the ocean, before I was a scientist, before there was internet really, I had a lot of trouble finding it. And so I want to make sure that you have access to as much information as I could provide. And so when I first started science communication with podcasting, I was like, I'm going to do this consistently. I'm going to be this resource where people can come. And at the beginning of this podcast, it was more about, I want to introduce you to the people that I know within the marine science and conservation world, because they're awesome and they do awesome things. And I want to share that with you. And I want to share who they are. I want you to get to know them. I want you to get to know their personality and to understand why they're so important to me, as well as why they're so important to the field of marine biology and conservation. Right? That's why I do this. That's why I've always started to do this. And then it went from interviewing to, I want to do this more because I really love this medium. I tried videos before, as I mentioned a number of times on this episode. If you're new here, welcome. But I did try a YouTube channel. I started a YouTube channel before I started podcasting. And that went okay, but it was really difficult for me to figure out the editing and then doing the stories and doing the research and everything, and doing the video editing as well as the audio editing. It was very difficult. It wasn't easy. I had toddlers at the time. I was tired. I was a bit younger, so I had a little bit more of things to do in the extracurriculars, Now, I probably have more time on my hand, but I love this so much. It's just evolved into something that's a part of me. This is part of my, I feel like it's part of my personality. It's actually helped me get the job that I have today, just in terms of the communication aspect. But when I first started podcasting, I had different frequencies. So when I first started, it was once a week for about 12 weeks. And then I started doing it 5 days a week. I had some help. Somebody said, I had a friend of mine, Nathan Johnson, who reached out to me, and we didn't even know each other. And he's like, hey, I want to write your show notes for you. So I said, perfect. I wanted to increase to 5 days a week, but I couldn't write show notes for 5 days a week and do a job. I was working for the government at the time. And it was perfect. So we had this thing. We eventually did a segment on, it was like a show once a week called Ocean Talk Friday for about a year and a half at least. Got to know each other, got to meet each other in person at a conference. And it was just wonderful to have that sort of partner to help me out. And that was great. That worked out really, really well. We kind of parted ways after a while, mutual agreement. He got a job somewhere else. It was going to take up more time. He was going to be back home where he loved to be with his friends and all that kind of stuff. And so he just didn't have as much time because he did this for, as part of his passion project. And so we kind of parted ways. I went to 3 days a week because that was what I could do. And then eventually I lost my job, I kind of went to a different job, lost that job. And then at one point I was doing 7 days a week because I really wanted to kickstart the downloads and kickstart people and knowing the different information. There's so much information. I could easily do 7 days a week if I had the time. If I was doing this full time, I could put out an episode a day. And people were downloading. My downloads shot up. Obviously my episode numbers shot up because I was doing 7 days a week. And that was great. But then I soon realized that doing the show notes and doing everything by hand and just, original, and it was time consuming. And I couldn't do anything else where I had to get money and I had to try and find how to monetize this or monetize something. And then so I got into a bit of podcast editing for a number of clients. COVID hit, and then that shot up, and I was doing that. So I went back to 3 days a week. Then I got a job, and I was like, okay, now I really have to go 3 days a week. I decided to keep the same kind of thing where if I did an episode on an interview, I have two different episodes. I do an interview with a guest or two guests or three guests, or I'll do like a solo episode, which is what you're hearing now. And so when I had those two types of shows, the solos would be under 20 minutes and the interviews could be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, because I like to talk, and usually I get people who like to talk about themselves and their projects, which is a lot of fun. And that kind of continued. That's where we're at now. And I've been continuing to publish and publish and publish. I'll be honest, I've missed a day here and there, and I feel so guilty when I miss that day. There are times, obviously, I missed my day when it's like a family tragedy or I'm on vacation. Even when I'm on vacation, like I'm about to go on vacation in a couple of weeks, and I still produce episodes. I just work a little harder and get a little more ahead and batch record before I leave, so that I have episodes scheduled out, and that's great, and it makes it a lot easier. Obviously, to be able to do this, to be able to do 3 days a week, work a full-time job, be a dad, coach hockey, coach football, all that kind of stuff that I like to do, I have to work very efficiently. And I have to be very wary of my time and how much I put into it, and be smart with my time. I can't sit here, which sometimes happens, and sit here on my phone, watching TikToks as I'm trying to, like, in between recording podcasts. It just can't happen too much, because if I do, we know the TikTok scroll and the Instagram scroll. If you do it for too long, you before you know it, like an hour in, you're just like, I've got nothing done. And that's not good time that's not good, good use of my time. But the workflow here is like, I try and batch record as much as possible on the weekend, so I don't have to do it on the weekdays. I find I have more time to develop the stories, and I have more time to talk about them and kind of go a little bit more in depth. The way I work is a lot off of, I read an article, I think about the article, I talk about the article. Sometimes I write down points just so I make sure I remember. If I'm like reading an article, I come by, like say I see an article while I'm out, just doing errands and stuff like that, and I come across this article that's like, a notification on my phone, I'll save the link, and then I will look at it later. I'll develop it later. So I might write down some points if I have an idea on a show, if I'm not looking at an article, and this like a show like this where I'm kind of just winging it. I'll just read the article, write a couple things down if I need to, and then I just press record, save the file, press record, and then I just go. And that's helped me. And what I do is I don't spend a lot of time in editing. The way I do my shows is a lot off the cuff. The one thing I like about podcasting is just straight from your head, from your mouth into your ears. That's the idea, right? Is just get my ideas out there. You'll sometimes hear me ramble a little bit during the episode until I come up with what I really want to say. Sometimes I edit that out if it's too much of a ramble, but most of the times I just leave it in there, and you just get straight me for 15 to 20 minutes like you're about to get now, right? And that's how I do my podcast. That's how my editing stays very simple. I do about maybe the whole editing process is maybe 5 minutes. Then for the show notes now with AI, I will take my episode, I will upload it to an AI service that I pay for per month. And then it summarizes the episode, and it puts it in a bunch of different formats, whether it be a number of different titles, some summaries, a detailed summary. It'll have socials. So if I want like a LinkedIn post or a Threads or Twitter post, or they'll have like a YouTube description post. And there's, oftentimes it's got like a ChatGPT integration. And I use that sometimes to kind of alter it a little bit or come up with something different, because sometimes it doesn't hit. And then I'll use that to summarize for my newsletter and stuff. They can get at speakupforblue.com/newsletter. That's speakupforblue.com/newsletter if you want 5 days a week of ocean content. But regardless, I do that, and I use that. That's helped me a lot. It helps me so much because I barely have to spend time in putting that into my show notes. And then so I put everything into the show notes that I want to put in. I upload the episode after I edit it and export it, and then it goes up on my Libsyn, and it's easy to do. And then it just gets pushed out to the podcast episodes when I tell it to push it out, which I can schedule it, and then it goes right into your ears. You can download it, or you can stream it, and you can listen to it on your favorite podcast app. And then you can review it, of course, on your favorite podcast app. And that's how I do it. That's essentially what I do. I try to do it in all at once. So this is my second episode of the day that I'm doing for this week. And this will go out on a Wednesday, because that's my science communication week. That's really it. I've gotten into such a good groove with it that I really like to do this. And every once in a while, I'll go a couple of weeks ahead, or sometimes I'm a little behind because life got busy and I've had like 3 tournaments in 1 month and it's difficult to keep up. But for the most part, I try and batch it because the content gets better when I batch it, because I can have time to think about it and I have time to prepare and I have time to record. And I'm not recording late night before I want to publish it at midnight the next day and so forth. So that's what I've done. And I've gotten in such a groove. And so what I wanted to do this year is, because I want to help people start, on a variety of different platforms and just start their science communication journeys. And so what I decided to do this year at the beginning of the year is I was like, you know what? I have a YouTube channel. I know YouTube is important. It can reach a very different audience than audio podcasts. It's obviously one of the biggest search engines in the world. So why don't I start producing some episodes for there, or publishing some episodes on there? So I came up with a show called Ocean Talk. Originally, though, I was just going to take the podcast I'm doing now, just film myself talking, and then publish it. I didn't like that format because, one, it was repetitive. Two, it wouldn't have been edited, and I didn't want it to not be edited. It would have been the same information, which is fine, but you have to say different things, and that means I'd have to edit it more. So, if you're watching, because I didn't want to just be like, well, if you're watching this on YouTube, you should go here. I wanted the YouTube platform to have its own show. So I called it Ocean Talk instead of How to Protect the Ocean. And I do 2 episodes a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so what I wanted to do was just do like a under 10-minute episode if I could. Talk about maybe something similar that I talked about this week, but on the YouTube platform, right? And have it a little bit more visual. Have some, maybe some effects, maybe some visuals like pictures and stuff like that to help tell the story. But that's essentially what I wanted to do. I want to start and just be like, hey, in a year or so, I'd be like, this is what I've done, and this is how far I've gotten. And this is how many subscribers or how many views, and, am I part of the partner program? Am I not part of the partner program, or monetization? I just wanted to be on a different platform because I wanted to tell people the different stories, and I wanted them to be aware of what's happening in the ocean, how they can speak up for it, and what they can do to live for a better ocean. That's important to me. That's my passion. If I can get money on it, sure, later on, that would be great. If I can't, that's fine. My goal and my legacy will be that I've told as many stories as possible on ocean conservation and science. That's the goal. That's my whole goal. That's the legacy. When I retire, if I ever stop doing this podcast before I pass away, well, this is going to be my legacy. I'm going to be known for doing this, and hopefully known for helping those who want to get into podcasting as well, and science communication in general. So that's sort of where I've kind of been at with the way I've done my science communication. And so far, the YouTube channel has been interesting because, like I said before, doing video is very different than doing audio. You're looking into a camera. You kind of want to look a little better. I try and shave. I do a shower. I wear some nicer clothes. When you're doing an audio podcast, you can sit here in your PJs. If it's hot outside, I could do it outside. I could do it inside. There's no background. I'm not being videoed. I can do it with my shirt off if I want. I don't, but if I could, if I wanted to, I could. And then I just talk, and I don't have to look into the camera. I can look all over the place. I don't have to make sure that the background is all cleaned up. I'm a very cluttered person, and so my office doesn't always look that great. But that's sort of, how I've been able to work it. So doing YouTube and video has been a little bit more challenging, making sure that everything's right. I wanted to kind of keep the same style where it would just be like I read an article, I come down, I sit down, I turn the camera on, I have my microphone in front of me, and I just talk. And then I'll try and slide in some images every once in a while. Maybe as I get better at editing, I'll try and increase sort of the quality of the edit if I can, if I have the time to be able to do that as I develop things. Learning a lot about sort of like keying items and moving things around and positions and zooming and all that kind of stuff. And that's been a lot of fun to learn, but I also have to remember that I have, a very tight timeline to be able to do these episodes. And there have been times where I missed, one of the episodes in a week, and I hated it. I've been able to do it fairly regularly since the beginning of January 2024. And so I've been it's been fun to be able to do. It's been challenging because like at the beginning, it's like, oh, I forgot to record. Oh, I forgot to record. Now I'm in the habit of recording, and I'll record like 1 or 2 episodes at a time, and then I just go. But again, when I start batching, I want to wear different shirts. So I got to remember, change my shirt so that I'm not looking like I'm wearing one shirt on Tuesday and the same shirt on Thursday. That looks kind of dirty. But that's just me. That's the way I roll. Some people may not even notice. I don't know. But I want to kind of give the picture of like, hey, I'm recording this on different days and, trying to update you. And most of the time, like lately, I haven't been able to batch. I've just been able to do it different days. But that's the goal, is to kind of keep that workflow in check. And I've been able to keep the editing down to about under 30 minutes, under 45 minutes to be able to do it. Adding maybe 15 minutes to do the thumbnail, because that's really important, to come up with titles, and kind of come up with a workflow and what I want my show notes, my description in the YouTube sort of avenue to look like. That's been a big sort of change for me, and just being like, okay, it's got to look something different than the show notes, but maybe a little bit similar. There's a couple of extra features within YouTube that you can do, like chapters and stuff like that can help people kind of sift through the information if they want to. And so there's a lot of extra things. So it's taking me some time, but the goal is to just publish twice a week. That's the goal, and I've been able to do that for the most part, probably about 85% of the time. But it's been hard to come up with a workflow and continue to do the podcast. Now, one thing that's actually helped me is I'm very comfortable now behind a camera compared to when I was before I did the podcasting, when I was just doing the YouTube channels. I have a better microphone, I have a better camera, I have better lights. I have a better background than I did when I first started. So the quality of video is a lot better. The quality of audio is a lot better. I'm not fiddling around with that. And now it's just a matter of, will people come to the YouTube channel to enjoy the same thing, same kind of information that they enjoyed when they come to this podcast, right? The audio podcast. And so now it's just a matter of putting in the time, not worrying about necessarily my numbers and how many views I'm getting, how many subscribers I'm getting, and just putting in the time to get the message out, and hopefully, do a little bit of marketing for it, a little bit of advertising, telling people about it. And then hopefully, people get to hear about it and they get to listen to it and watch it this time, and just on a different platform. The beauty of having YouTube now is they have their own podcasting platform with YouTube Music. So people who listen to Ocean Talk on video can also take it on the road with them with audio. The other thing that they can do, if they're a premium member, like I am for one of my channels for YouTube, is that if you're a YouTube premium holder or member, you can actually listen to listen to any video without watching the video. You can just lock your screen and you don't have to watch the video. So I can put it in the car if I want and just listen to it. A lot of the times, for me, my episodes that I listen to are very, talk-based, right? They're just talking heads. And so I don't necessarily have to watch what they're doing. I just have to listen to what they're saying. That's the beauty of sort of video podcasts, which is what Ocean Talk essentially is. It's just in a little bit more of a structured format. Or now I'm looking at my time, I'm going over 20 minutes, which I normally go over because I'm talking about something I really like, and I'm probably giving you a lot of details here. So feel free to take notes or contact me at How to Protect the Ocean, or even through email, speakupforblue.com/contact. But that's sort of what I would say if you are starting, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on podcasts, whether it be in short. So these are long-term content platforms. Even Twitch is a long-term long-form content platform. When you're looking at short form, which a lot of people I've noticed I've seen a big community come up, not only on Instagram, but on TikTok, where we've seen people start putting out short form content. Not even start, they've been doing it for years, since TikTok and Instagram kind of had video. And I've seen some really great things. But again, it comes down to consistency and workflow. How well do you edit? Do you edit? Some of the episodes you do edit. Sometimes you do a full trend, like it's a dance, or it's a lip sync kind of trend, and you're showing videos, and sometimes you're videotaping stuff, or you're recording videos out in the field, which is even more difficult. It takes a little bit more planning. The idea, I guess, that the advice that I would give to you for starting something, whether it be long form or short form, is plan it out. Take a few weeks to plan it out. Just to sit down and brainstorm in a journal, or, write it down or type it out and just be like, this is what I want this format to look like. Whether it's long form, short form, it's up to you. That doesn't matter. What I would say the big thing to plan for is consistency. How consistent can I get? Right? Don't worry necessarily about the quality. Right? When I first listened to my podcast, my first podcast, I cringe at it. It's never great. They're always going to be your worst episodes. You're going to get better and better as you go through. It's very rare that somebody's amazing right off the bat on camera or on TikTok or on Instagram or anywhere on a podcast. You get better and better. So know that you're going to get better and better, and just put together the episodes and put together the content. The quality of the audio and video doesn't have to be that great, but if you look at, like, say you're doing short form, you look at the quality of video of your camera and you're going to get it pretty good, right? You get, you put in some AirPods or any kind of like earbuds or headphones, speak into it. If you can get a mic for your camera, even better, or your phone, even better. If not a big deal. You can use like the AirPods, or even just like some people use just the earphones. Like I have an iPhone, so that I just use, sometimes I'll use just the mic that's on the standard Apple headphones or earbuds that are wired, and you can use that, no problem. So it just takes a while to get used to getting better with quality in the content, but just keep putting the content out. It doesn't have to be great. You're not going to get amazing views right off the bat. It's a slow process. In fact, I wouldn't even look at the views. What I would look at is the content and what people want to hear, right? That's the first thing. Search up what kind of questions people are asking. If you're going to go from an education standpoint, or if you're going to go, I'm just going to produce content. When I first started, I didn't even look at search. I just looked at what I wanted to talk about. Right? Because I feel like that's important. So yeah, sometimes you're hitting right on, sometimes you miss, but it's what you want to talk about, because that's what you're most comfortable in talking about. So take subject matters where you really are knowledgeable in the subject, and then you can talk about that, right? I've got now almost 10 years of podcasting experience and talking about different subject matters. A lot of times I'll refer back to episodes that I've talked about before and pull out pieces of information that are relevant to the topic that I'm talking about on the episode that I'm currently recording. And then I'll start going and making up new content, mixing that content together. But for you who is just starting, and maybe you're an early career scientist and you're really big into science communication, then that's when you start to put out more content, or you're going to maybe take a little bit more time to put out the content. But talk about something that you know. So if you're a graduate student and you have a specific research project, talk about that research project or the topics surrounding that you know of, right? If you're doing a literature search, talk about the literature search. If you want to talk about being a graduate student, talk about being a graduate student. People always want to know the various experiences of graduate students, right? Which hopefully are good. Sometimes, unfortunately, they're not. But talk about that. Talk about looking for a career. Talk about the struggles. Talk about the successful times and the fun of it and the challenges of it. There's all this stuff you can talk about that people want to know. And there's always going to be a group of people that want to hear it from you, because they connect with you, not necessarily with me, not necessarily with anybody else, but with you, because they connect with maybe it's your culture, maybe it's your background, maybe it's the way you speak, maybe it's the way you present the topic and the content. It doesn't matter, right? They all connect with everybody differently, and that's the beauty of this space. That's the beauty of digital platforms being available to pretty much over 7 billion, 8 billion people. That's the beauty of it. So my advice right now is plan it out, take some time to record, and just publish and publish and publish. Don't worry about the quality of it. Just continue to go and go and go. You'll get better. You'll find your voice. You'll find your structure, and then you'll get even better and better at it. And then you'll start to get recognized for it. And that's where you're like, okay, now I know I'm doing really well, because people are starting to listen. They're starting to engage, and they're starting to recognize me, whether it be voice or by video or whatever that might be. So that's the advice. That's just sort of what the experience that I've had and the advice that I have for you. I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean. And of course, you can always connect with me through our website, speakupforblue.com/contact. And if you want to sign up for the newsletter, speakupforblue.com/newsletter, you can sign up for that. 5 days a week, you get content, all things ocean and conservation. I thank you so much for listening and having the patience to listen to this 30-minute episodes. I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you as someone who wants to help protect the ocean and be a science communicator. So thanks so much for listening to this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.